Hello and welcome to the CNBC-TV18 special. I'm Shereen Bhan. We're coming to you from North Block and we're in conversation with the Revenue Secretary, Tarun Bajaj. Mr. Bajaj, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. It's great to be back in North Block after COVID and, of course, before it shuts down for the budget quarantine. So it's nice to be able to speak to you in person. This is your last 48 hours in office, Mr. Bajaj. So I want to touch upon a whole host of issues with you. Let me start by addressing the unfinished agenda. And I go back to an issue that you've very publicly spoken about. You've been vocal about it since the time of the budget presentation in early Feb this year. You said that the capital gains tax needs simplification. In fact, it needs change and tinkering. In light of the recommendations that have come in, the work that perhaps has already gone into looking at what needs changing, is this the right time? Is this the appropriate time to make those changes, which you have said need addressing, need intervention?
First of all, thank you for having me for your program. Yes, I said that, and I said that immediately after the last budget. Perhaps people were not expecting me to say something which was not there in the budget. But I said that because I wanted a conversation, a debate to go on for the whole year, so that we know the views of the stakeholders, the people who are going to be affected by any changes that may happen on the capital gains. But I would say I did not get the kind of response that I was expecting throughout the year. We had done some preparation. Now it will depend on the policy makers. I'm not involved in the budget making process, so it will depend on whether they want to bring it or they want to wait a little more, do more conversation and more discussions and debate on it. But yes, one thing is for sure, that our capital gains tax regime is very complicated. It needs simplification. I've said it earlier and I'm repeating it here, that we have various buckets under which we put all products. Financial also we put in different buckets, and then we charge different taxes on them as capital gains. Then we also have different time periods to decide short-term and long-term. Then in some cases we have indexation, in others we don't have indexation. So I think all this needs cleaning up, but whether the time is right now, the time maybe was yesterday, if I may say so, but whether it happens this year or not is something for us to see on the 1st of February.
Yes, we'll know on the 1st of February, but I want to understand from you, said you were expecting a conversation, a debate, but you didn't get the expected response. So what was the expectation and what are you disappointed with, if I could use that word?
I would say when I said that, I thought there'll be articles, there'll be conversation with the policy makers as to what should be done. But I didn't find so much of response to that, and I completely appreciate and understand why it didn't happen. There are conflicting interests in every body that you have, whether it's an association, an industry body. There'll be people who would be wanting, say for example, to bring a lower time zone for short-term and long-term for, say, real estate assets, while there would be others who would be saying no, debt assets should come. So there would be conflicting. So it becomes very difficult for you to say something on behalf of a group. So though we saw some articles and some responses individually by various players. In fact, recently, a few days ago, I saw something which actually said that equity is the market where nothing below 3 years should be counted as long term. It should all be short term and only 3 years and above. So I thought such like debates would happen, and then one can engage, one can understand. I personally feel, till I was here, I didn't want to make any changes based on what my perception is, what my thinking is. The taxpayer, the people who operate in the stock market, people who operate in the bond market, who do real estate, the real estate players, they're all important players in the system. We should know what is affecting them, what is it that they want, and after all, this is taxes that we are talking about, and it can have an impact on the sale of the product. So we would like to know how it impacts each segment and then take a conscious call as to what should be done.
So, I'm not preempting anything that the budget may or may not do, but from what I hear from you, it seems like there hasn't been enough preparation at this stage to warrant a change, to warrant that simplification, which you said is much needed, but perhaps the timing at this point in time is not appropriate.
You are reading something which I have not said, so I will not say what you are saying is correct. I don't know what's going to be there in the budget. And if you say that there has not been preparation, my team has actually worked very hard on this, and I have
So is your team of the view that 3 years is the appropriate
No. That I just gave you an example. That I just gave you an example. There is no such intention to bring the equity to 3 years and something like that. That I just gave you an example of somebody actually coming out in the open and speaking, which will be very difficult for, say, the Capital Market Association or some group there to say something like that. But people here have done a lot of studies. You also know that there was an Akhilesh Ranjan committee report, there were earlier reports. They've also gone into this whole aspect, and also people from the private, means outside the government, were involved in it. They have given their recommendations, so it's not that it is not available. But I thought in this 1 year we'll have good fights outside in the media, and we'll get to know what's there in it, and maybe then take a call.
Well,
that's the only disappointment that I was mentioning.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that there is no work which has happened. A lot of work has happened. Some associations, some people have also given their recommendations and responses.
Yes, they have. AMFI, CII and many others have presented their recommendations. I want to address another issue which you have, of course, spoken about, and that is as far as GST slab convergence and rationalization is concerned. Given where we find ourselves today, would it be fair to say that we are still some distance away from any rationalization, rate rationalization, when I talk about slab convergence specifically? Because you're on the record to say the revenue neutral rate was in excess of 15%, 15.3%, and we're currently at about 11%, so there is a large gap and a large distance. In that context, do you believe that we're any closer to rate convergence?
I would also say things have changed a lot since I said that and what people were saying that. You recall your first interview with me where you said, will you cross 1 lakh crores? And I'll repeat it. Now you don't ask me that question.
Are you going to cross 1.6?
So you're going to be asking those kind of questions, the 1.6, and maybe a few months down the lane you'll say, will you cross 2 lakhs? And so I'm saying that even with that 11.6, or it may have gone up to 11.8 or 11.9, the tax rate, we have been able to achieve 1,50,000. So we have tried other things through which better compliance and more formalization of the economy, trying to match figures that we have from direct taxes with indirect taxes with MCA. So we've been able to raise the tax revenues. So I won't say that the target of the policymaker is to reach a figure of 15.3%. That is something which was mentioned, that this is the kind of relief that was given in terms of what the revenues were coming earlier and what the tax rates on excise duty and sales tax or VAT were and what the GST is. So basically that is what the message was, that was what the dialogue was. And as far as rationalization of slabs is concerned, if you see, it is not possible to reach a stage of 100 from zero. We will do that journey, and in that journey we'll have ups and downs. So in the 45th and the 47th GST Council meeting, and even before that, we've been able to correct a lot of inverted duty structures of our taxes. We have also given up a lot of exemptions and also corrected another few things. We've also given some relief where it was due. So having said that, I think let's see how does GST move in the next 3 to 6 months, and then maybe the policymakers can decide what is it that they want to do with these slabs.
Let me address an issue, a tax that was brought in given the global economic context as well as the need here domestically, the windfall gains tax. What we have seen now is crude prices coming off quite sharply, in fact at a 10-month low. While there was never an official number in terms of what is the threshold of when the government will decide to withdraw or roll back the windfall gains tax, the expectation or the assumption or the rumored number was $75. Can you explain to us where things currently stand, the thinking on the windfall gains tax?
So windfall gains tax is something that we've been changing every 2 weeks. I think the day we presented this, there was a lot of apprehension, including in the media, may I say that we will not change it and this is there for to stay. But within 14 days or 15 days, the first time we took a little more time, we changed it and it went up and down. And so I think as the prices come down, the windfall taxes will either reduce or they will go away. And as a policy maker in the Ministry of Finance in the North Block, I would say that if the windfall tax actually goes away, it's good for the economy, because that means that the crude prices are down, the diesel and petrol product prices are down. To that extent, our import bill reduces and our current account deficit improves. So if that happens, that is far, far better than the small amount of windfall taxes that we'll collect through this process.
So, the next review is up on the 1st of December. In light of where prices currently are, do you believe that the mechanism should stay, or the mechanism will go back, or is there a threshold by when the government sort of suspends the mechanism and brings it back if prices cross a certain threshold?
That is what actually the system is functioning. If you recall, the ATF had gone to zero. We had stopped levying it on ATF, and then ATF actually came back. So if something like that happens, if the crude prices drop, the windfall tax may go away on crude. But if it comes back after 2 weeks or 3 weeks...
What's the number, sir?
The number is, it's not actually related just to that number. It is also related to the rupee dollar price. So I won't be able to give you the exact number, but you are very close to the numbers that you are thinking of. So if it reaches there, and then also there's a formula. I think what they do is they don't look at a one-day figure, because it could so happen that it has actually happened in the past that on the last day the prices really went up. But we did not have the windfall taxes based on the last day's price. So they look at the prices over a period of 14 days. Ministry of Petroleum also gives us a lot of input on all this, because they are the experts on that.
Okay, so we'll have to wait to see, and so you...
I'll also see, because on the first even I'll also see.
So 75 is about the threshold
No,
at this
but
point.
again I said the rupee dollar,
yeah.
it was much lower when we started. It was 77, 78, I can't remember correctly.
Yeah.
Now it is 81.
Yeah, that's right. Let's address one of the other issues, and again, this is something that you've publicly spoken about. The need to incentivize people to move to the new tax regime, which is, for some reason, which you are well now aware of, not found takers. What is the thinking at this point in time, and how do you correct the perception as well as bring in more sweeteners, if any, to draw people in?
Look, I think I've explained this earlier. The issue is that in the new tax regime, the tax kicks in at 2.5 lakh of income plus. While in the old tax regime, till 5 lakhs, there's no tax, and there are also exemptions, which means if I take benefit of exemptions of 1.5 lakh or 2 lakhs, so even if I have an income of 7 lakhs, I pay no taxes. And about 80 to 85% of the people pay tax, have income up to 7.5 lakhs. So you will not have this class of people actually coming into the new regime. The people who have higher income and are not taking too many exemptions will find favor with the new regime. I would say that we really need to rethink and reinvent the personal income tax regime completely.
Let's talk about the macros now, and I want to talk to you as far as the overall tax picture is concerned, and that's where the real cushion has come in, both as far as direct as well as indirect taxes are concerned. Of course, expenditure has also been higher on account of the food and fertilizer subsidy. How comfortable do you feel in terms of meeting the fiscal deficit target? There are, of course, estimates suggesting that we may, in fact, exceed on account of the higher expenditure. I want to get your view on where things currently stack up, both on the tax front as well as expenditure.
I was with the Finance Secretary just a couple of minutes ago, just before your interview started, and almost on a daily basis we have a conversation. So I can say that the government is feeling very confident that we'll meet our fiscal deficit target of 6.4 in spite of very heavy burden on account of food subsidy, fertilizer subsidy, petroleum subsidy also to some extent having come back. But I think the higher revenues and some other measures which the expenditure side would have taken would see us this year to 6.4. Last year also I think we did 0.1% less and not more. So we have made a promise to the country that we'll take it to 4.5% in 25-26. I think in Ministry of Finance all of us are very conscious of that and always are working on that. And I think the people of this country have also helped us by paying more taxes, so revenues have come, which will take care of the higher expenditure.
So you feel confident of being able to achieve that fiscal glide path that you have committed to?
So what I'll say is that 6.4 is something that I feel should happen this year. There's no reason even today that I feel that we would exceed that 6.4. 4.5 is something that has been promised in the budget a year or 2 years ago. I would say that the government would stick to the fiscal path because that's very important for our overall economy and the macroeconomy. And the reason that we are seeing this growth and the confidence of the various investors in our country is also because of our commitment on all these factors, and also the fact that now we are much more transparent in terms of disclosing our expenditure, our liabilities than what it was before.
On the non-tax side, and particularly disinvestment, of course, over the last budget, there has been an attempt to put in a much more realistic number, but even that so-called realistic number, the actual performance on the ground is far short of that. What do you think is the issue, and do you believe that once again there needs to be a relook at the way that the government is projecting both disinvestment as well as monetization? Because even as far as monetization is concerned, there is a wide gap between what the government had projected or estimated and where things currently stand on the ground.
Disinvestment, I would say this year's target is about 65,000, not about, it's 65,000 crores, and they are close to having achieved almost 30,000 or a little more. So let us see, there's still 4 months to go for the year to end, and there are some things in the offing. So I think the Disinvestment Ministry department would be close to the figure that they have projected in the budget. If it falls short or goes up by 5,000, 7,000, so that's not of so much of importance.
That's the gap that you envisage? You believe
I don't know.
It might be 5,000 or 7,000 up or down?
I don't know. There are a number of things that are in the offing. I've also been reading the newspapers. I have not had a time to discuss with Secretary Disinvestment as to what does he propose. He's already going. Today also there was a news item that IDBI is happening and happening pretty fast. So let's see whether it closes before March or closes in April or May. I would again say and agree to what Tuhin says in this regard, rather than pinning us down on 31st March on a particular figure. It's very important to take the process forward to ensure that money comes. So if it doesn't come on 31st March and even comes on 30th of April, I think we should be happy about it, that we have been able to crack it. As I had said it earlier, and he must have said it many times in the interview with you, that it was long, long ago, I think in the early 2000s, that we were privatizing our assets. After that, we stopped privatizing our assets. Now we have again started that. So that's a nice thing. It's a difficult process. We should accept that. That's a very difficult process. We have to be very careful we don't make a mistake. While I am the one who's climbing that or walking on that rope, and there are so many people who are looking at me, and wherever I make a mistake, they are the ones who point out to me. So I have to be sure that I don't make any mistake. So let's give it to them that they're working very hard on that. It's not an easy task.
No, I'm not suggesting that.
I'm not saying that you're saying that.
And I totally understand the challenges that bureaucrats specifically have to face, because at the end of the day, it is you signing off on a particular transaction. But even as far as monetization is concerned, and again, this is what we're getting to hear, that the government may review, what has happened on monetization, and perhaps there is a need to course correct or acknowledge the experience and change a strategy on the back of that. What is your own view and your own thinking?
I'm sorry, I'm not too updated on the numbers on the monetization, but what I heard last year, they had planned about 1 lakh crores. They were able to achieve that. Even this year, the number which they have achieved, which they mentioned, is very large, though the number which is yet to be achieved is also pretty large. But again, on monetization, I would say we just read it in the papers or in the media that they're planning also to monetize the stadias. So these are things which we had not thought of 3 to 4 years ago. I think, again, what I think we need to appreciate is the process, the fact that some of the ministries and departments have actually gone much way forward, and the others are now trying to get there. And once they do the first, second, third one, I think it will be much faster. So, and monetization is something that would help in creation of more infrastructure, given more money to those corporates and those entities. So I think while we may have failed, I would not be hesitant, or I would not try to defend that I've failed. If I've failed, I've failed. But the fact is that these are first time attempts being made by any government in the 75 years that we have, and if we have succeeded quite a bit, the InvITs have started functioning in a lot of ministries. So I think it's a good step. We need to appreciate, we need to buck them up so that they do more in the coming year.
As you look at the economy today and, given the challenging global environment, India is not immune to what is happening globally, but we've been surprisingly resilient in the face of all of the headwinds at this point in time. What's the sense that you get in terms of growth, not just for the current fiscal, but more importantly for the road ahead?
This year, I think we have, though there have been some changes in the downgrades by some of the entities, but still we'll be the highest growth country amongst the larger economies of the world. I think we'll continue to be like that. There are headwinds, the petroleum prices, the commodity prices, the war that is going on, what is going to happen in the economy of Europe and the US. If all that is taken into account, and if we say that that will not have an impact on us, it will definitely have an impact on us, but depends how much impact will it have. So I think we would continue to outshine and have better growth rates than what the other countries will be able to show in this medium-term period. How much will that be? Whether that will be 7.5%, 8%, or will it be 6.5% is something, a question of a number. But I would say whether the path that we are taking is the right path is the important part. And I think we really need to be very careful about the fiscal policies, the monetary policies which the RBI is following, and ensure that we remain on that right path and don't falter, because that's very important for us.
Speaking of policies, I want to address what we are seeing as far as cryptocurrencies are concerned in light of the global crypto collapse. We chose to move a bill, we chose twice to pull it back, and then of course we brought in the tax. In hindsight and in light of what you are seeing, do you believe that today the RBI stands vindicated in saying that there should be a ban as far as cryptocurrency is concerned?
The jury is out. I'm not there to say anything on that, but what I'll say is that yes, we were not able to decide and come to the parliament as to what we wanted to do, whether we wanted to ban it or not ban it. The people who wanted to ban it gave the arguments. RBI was on the forefront of that. People who didn't want to ban it said that you can't ban it in technology terms today, so let's regulate it. This is the technology of the future. I think last year the questions were also different, that are you going to, the blockchain technology will not come up if you don't allow this. But the questions have changed based on what is happening there. But I would say I stand vindicated in taxing
by bringing in the tax
rates on the cryptos. And I think that's something now. In fact, the message that I'm getting from my colleagues who are traveling all over the world is that other countries are also admiring this step, and we were one of the first countries to do that, and they feel that yes, that is something that was required to be done.
Speaking of new taxes that require to be brought to the table, every year around the budget time, the speculation starts on whether the government is going to consider bringing in an estate tax or not. Given, and I'm not asking you whether this budget is going to do that or not, but do you believe that that is a legitimate option for the government to consider, given the complexities involved?
One is the complexities involved. The second is, I haven't seen very recent study that even if we do that tax, how much of the revenues we would get. My own view is that if I'm going to get like wealth tax also, you didn't take that name, but wealth tax is also forms part of that. If you're going to get not a very huge tax revenue from that avenue, and the implementation is going to be very tedious and you'll have to do a lot of things, then maybe we can think of other ways of raising resources rather than just doing it this way, because there are some other countries that are doing the same way.
Mr. Bajaj, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us on CNBC-TV18. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you over the course of the last 2.5 years. And of course, we are going to miss you on Budget Day for sure, but we hope to have you join us on that day, albeit from the other side. But thank you very much for joining us as always.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this CNBC-TV18 special from all of us here at North Block. Thanks very much for watching.